Today, I will show you how to make the best Lightning Ranger Deadeye build in Path of Exile 2. I already have several iterations of this build on my channel, and for those of you who know, each build I upload is a continuation of the previous one, meaning it's more powerful, more effective, and more fun to play. It's safe to say, after dozens of hours, hundreds of thousands of gold wasted on respecking, and many different support gem combinations tested, I have finally found the most consistent Lightning Ranger build. I'm talking massive amounts of elemental damage, insane AoE potential, allowing you to clear an entire screen of mobs with one shot, and the ability to destroy Citadel bosses within seconds. Best of all, I didn't spend a single divine orb on any of my gear. All of it is easily obtainable just by playing, making it the strongest budget ranger build currently in the game. My previous ranger build that I uploaded almost a week ago is good, but I managed to make it even stronger, which I'm sure many of you will appreciate. I made a couple of tweaks to the support gems and passive skill tree, which made a huge difference on the build, providing more elemental damage, AoE radius, and just clear potential overall, which is crucial for endgame mapping against large mobs and during breaches. This build is not only stronger, but it's simplified as well. 90% of the time, you'll be one-shotting mobs with Lightning Arrow. Thanks to the synergy between Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder, the combination of cold and lightning damage on the build, and the extended area of effect for your explosions, you'll be able to run through tier 15 maps with no issues at all. Mobs will be cleared in the blink of an eye, and bosses will be dead before they even get the chance to attack you. You'll sacrifice a bit of survivability to juice up your DPS, but trust me, it's well worth it. In this case, a stronger offense is an even better defense. Today, we'll break down the best skill gems, support gems, passive skill tree, and gear, so you can make the best Lightning Ranger Deadeye build in Path of Exile 2. Real quick guys, I partnered up with BenQ to give you all the chance to win the new BenQ EX271Q monitor, which has a 27-inch display, 180 Hz, a 1 millisecond response time, and HDRI, which will elevate your gaming experience with vibrant visuals and ultra smooth performance. BenQ is the best in the industry, and this isn't an opportunity you should skip out on. You have nothing to lose. The giveaway starts today, and to enter, all you have to do is click the Gleam link in the description or pinned comment below and submit your entries. The more entries you submit, the higher your chances will be to win. I will select the winner on February 7th. Don't miss the chance to unveil the unseen and take your gaming setup to the next level with BenQ Mobius. Good luck, everyone. The active skill gems on this build are Lightning Arrow, Lightning Rod, Herald of Ice, Herald of Thunder, Orb of Storms, Cast on Shock, Wind Dancer, Ghost Dance, and Voltaic Mark. Lightning Arrow is your main skill. It shoots a lightning-infused arrow that can chain lightning beams, allowing you to hit multiple targets at once. With this skill, you want to stack as much elemental and physical damage as possible. In my previous video, you were mainly stacking lightning damage and then relying on Herald of Thunder to freeze enemies. Although it was effective enough, removing support gems like Lightning Infusion, which lowers cold damage, and substituting it with Rising Tempest, for example, which increases elemental damage by 15% for each ailment you inflict, not only increases your damage output, but also increases shock buildup and chill, which is crucial for getting Herald of Thunder to proc more often and freeze enemies so you can shatter them. Lightning Rod is your primer for shocking enemies so you can trigger your socketed spells with Cast on Shock. Lightning Rod also increases the effectiveness of Lightning Arrow since its rods stay in the ground, allowing you to chain lightning bursts, which will hit more targets at once at a higher frequency. You won't use this skill much while mapping, but it will come in handy against rare enemies and bosses. This is because once you drop an Orb of Storms and shoot lightning rods into it, you'll quickly trigger socketed spells like Ball Lightning to help you kill tougher enemies within seconds. Herald of Ice activates the ability for you to shatter frozen enemies on screen, which will cause AoE explosions. Thanks to Lightning Arrow and the added cold damage on your gear and passive tree, you'll be able to freeze enemies instantly, which means instant explosions which will chain to other enemies on and off screen, thanks to Herald of Thunder causing a chain reaction of destruction. Lightning damage, cold damage, and elemental damage is crucial for this build to succeed. Without enough of it, it will be difficult to proc Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder. Both work hand in hand, and if one is prioritized over the other, you won't be able to achieve max potential. Herald of Thunder unleashes lightning bolts from the sky that deal AoE damage whenever you kill shocked enemies. As long as you have sufficient lightning damage on your build, Lightning Arrow will shock enemies quickly enough to help you keep Herald of Thunder active at all times when firing. The reason you want Herald of Thunder active as much as possible is because Herald of Thunder is infused with cold support gems like Ice Bite, Glaciation, and Cold Infusion, allowing you to chill and freeze enemies while you shock them with Lightning Arrow. This synergy is what causes all the massive explosions you see on screen in the gameplay footage. Orb of Storms is another primer on this build that enhances the effects of your lightning skills. When you drop this orb on the ground and spam your lightning skills into it, your attack frequency will increase, making all lightning skills stronger. For example, when you activate Orb of Storms and nuke a boss by shooting as many lightning rods as you can into it, you'll trigger your socketed spells, which will allow Ball Lightning to melt a boss's health bar within seconds. Cast on Shock is a buff that will trigger any socketed spells once you accumulate enough energy, and the way you accumulate energy is by shocking enemies. The quicker you stack Shock, the more often your socketed spells will trigger. Wind Dancer is a defensive buff that stacks your evasion even higher, allowing you to maintain a higher defense as long as you don't get hit with a melee attack, which should be fairly simple considering the nature of this class. At 20% quality, you can receive nearly 20% evasion at a maximum of 4 stacks, which is very easy to maintain. That's nearly 80% extra evasion at all times if you play carefully. You do lose stacks when you are hit by a melee attack, but luckily you'll have support gems like Blind and Maim socketed into the skill, allowing you to blind and slow down enemies who manage to hit you, which increases your chances of survival and also provides more opportunities for counterattacks. Ghost Dance is the second defensive spirit skill on this build. This buff will allow you to periodically gain ghost shards, which are consumed every time you are hit, allowing you to recover some energy shield based on your evasion. The higher your evasion, the more energy shield you will recover. And lastly, we have Voltaic Mark. This skill marks an enemy, makes them more susceptible to being shocked, and if you manage to kill a marked enemy, it will trigger a lightning explosion which deals AoE damage. This skill is very useful against enemies that have higher resistances to lightning or chill. So if you're doing maps where the enemies have 50% more elemental resistance, this is very useful. Voltaic Mark will help you trigger Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder more often in those specific situations. It's also really good during boss fights because it allows you to shock bosses faster, and every time you trigger a socketed spell like Ball Lightning, it will reset and trigger more lightning balls. You'll use 5 support gems for Lightning Arrow, and you're going to see a lot of differences in these support gems compared to the support gems in my previous video. Trust me guys, this setup is way more efficient. Martial Tempo increases attack speed by 25%, which is crucial for higher DPS. Heft increases physical damage by 30%. Rising Tempest increases elemental damage by 15% for each ailment you inflict. And since you'll be applying shock and chill simultaneously, you'll maintain 30% extra elemental damage with Lightning Arrow. Primal Armament increases elemental damage by an additional 25%, and Lightning Mastery adds +1 level to Lightning Arrow. For Lightning Rod, I have Scatter Shot, which allows you to shoot 2 more projectiles for each cast. Concentrated Effect, which increases area damage by 40%. Overcharge, which increases the magnitude of your shock by 75%, making it more powerful, and Close Combat, which increases attack damage by 25% to enemies within 1 meter of you, making it very effective when you're right on top of a boss, shooting lightning rods into your Orb of Storms. The idea behind these support gems is to stack shock on enemies as quick as possible so you can trigger your socketed spells. For Herald of Ice, you'll use Lightning Infusion, which adds 25% lightning damage, Concentrated Effect, which increases AoE radius by 40%, making your explosions more effective, Conduction, which increases shock chance by 100%, and Innervate, which increases lightning damage by an additional 35% whenever you kill shocked enemies with your explosions. The reason you want lightning support gems socketed into Herald of Ice is because it allows you to chain both of your heralds together. If Herald of Ice is shocking enemies when you shatter them, Herald of Thunder will proc immediately after, causing a chain reaction of shocks and freezes on enemy mobs, allowing you to clear screens instantly. For Herald of Thunder, you have Long Shot, which is really nice because it increases your damage by 35% to enemies who are further than 7 meters away, which will help you shatter enemies off screen. Ice Bite increases cold damage by 35% for 3 seconds when you freeze an enemy. Cold Infusion adds 25% more cold damage, and Glaciation increases freeze buildup by 50%. For Orb of Storms, you only need 3 support gems. Chain allows you to chain more with your lightning skills. Overabundance allows you to cast Orb of Storms twice, and Unleash allows the effect of each Orb of Storms you drop to reoccur when cast. For Cast on Shock, you'll need 2 spells and 2 support gems. Ball Lightning fires a slow-moving projectile that repeatedly shoots bolts of lightning at nearby enemies. Impetus increases energy gain by 40%. Eye of Winter fires a projectile that releases ice shards, which deal cold damage. And lastly, Energy Retention, which creates a 35% chance for you to refund half of your energy cost when socketed spells are triggered. For Wind Dancer, I would recommend using Blind, Maim, and Culling Strike. Blind has a 100% chance to blind enemies who end your Wind Dancer. Maim will slow them down in the process, making them more vulnerable for a counterattack, and Culling Strike will immediately kill rare or unique enemies when they attack you as long as they are below 10% health. To make Ghost Dance more beneficial for your build, you should add Fast Forward, which decreases skill effect duration, allowing you to gain Ghost Shrouds faster, and Clarity, which adds 30% mana regen rate whenever Ghost Dance is active. To increase the effectiveness of Voltaic Mark, I recommend using Arcane Tempo, which increases cast speed by 25%, and Persistence, which increases skill duration by 40%. This will allow you to mark enemies faster to avoid exposing yourself to damage, and will keep them marked for a longer period of time, which can be very useful during boss fights. For this build, you will use the Deadeye Ascendancy, and I would recommend grabbing Gathering Winds, Point Blank, and Endless Munitions as soon as you can. Gathering Winds will unlock the Tailwind effect for your Ranger, which is one of the best things you can do. Tailwind stacks up to 10 times every time you use a skill, and when you reach max stacks, you'll maintain 10% extra movement speed, 30% skill speed, and 150% evasion. Point Blank will allow you to deal 20% extra damage to enemies within 3 meters, and Endless Munitions allows you to shoot 2 arrows at once with your bow. Honed Instincts will increase attack speed, projectile speed, and add plus 10 dexterity to the build. Now, a lot of you have been asking me how much dexterity and how much intelligence do I need on this build, and to be honest, it's really going to depend on the level of the skill gems that you have. So for example, if you're using a higher level Orb of Storms, you're going to need more intelligence. However, for that skill specifically, you don't really need to use like a level 15, 17, or 18 Spirit Gem because that skill doesn't really do damage. That skill is a primer for you to enhance the frequency of your other lightning skills, so I wouldn't use anything above, 10, 11, or 12 for that one. Dexterity is going to be your highest stat, but intelligence is also very important depending on the skills that you are using and what level they are. Vile Wounds increases your damage by 33% to enemies who are affected by status effects. Master Fletching and pretty much every node attached here should be unlocked as well, since collectively it increases your quiver bonuses by 80%, which will give you a massive DPS boost. Elemental damage is also very important, which is why you should unlock these nodes above all the way until Harness the Elements. Altogether, this will increase your elemental damage by 54%, increasing the effectiveness of your lightning and cold damage with Lightning Arrow. Jewel slots are very important, and you should try to unlock these whenever you can. If you want to maximize the damage of your skills, I would look for modifiers such as lightning damage, projectile speed, attack speed, or even damage with bow skills. If we move up further, there's a series of passives here that you must have if you want to maximize your damage and defense. Falcon Technique increases your attack speed by 1% for every 15 dexterity on your build, which means the more you increase this over time, the more your DPS will increase as well. These nodes to the right here, like Enhanced Reflexes and Bestial Skin, will give you a massive boost to your evasion, which is important if you want to stay alive. If we continue upwards, you'll see Storm Surge, Storm Swell, and Unbound Forces. These passives will give you a huge increase to your Chill and Shock, increasing their magnitude and duration at the same time. You'll also be able to penetrate cold and lightning resistances much easier. You'll see another jewel slot here, which you will use to increase your lightning damage, damage with bows, and attack speed even further. You'll also grab Kite Runner while you're here, since it boosts your movement speed, projectile speed, and projectile damage. If we work our way back down near Harness the Elements, you'll see 3 nodes here, which includes Catalysis and another jewel slot. Catalysis is nice because it adds more elemental damage to your build, and to be honest, any jewel slots you can grab will benefit you greatly. Maiming Strike shouldn't be ignored either. It will increase your attack damage by 25% and applies a 25% chance to slow enemies down for each hit, which will help you evade more attacks and even stay alive. There will be another jewel slot for you to unlock to the right here. If we move up, you'll be able to grab Coming Calamity, which increases attack damage by 50% whenever Herald of Ice and Herald of Thunder are active, and a second jewel slot right at the top. In my previous build, I extended this path to grab Wild Storm to help me increase my lightning damage, but after a lot of testing, I came to the conclusion that elemental damage was way more beneficial since it helped me freeze and shock enemies faster. There's also some passives you should grab to the opposite side of the skill tree here down below. Acceleration increases your movement speed by 3% and skill speed by 16%, which is huge and should not be ignored. Freeze buildup is obviously important if you want to proc Herald of Ice, so you should definitely grab the Pressure Points passive skill. This passive and the 3 nodes before it will add up to 65% stun buildup and 65% freeze buildup. If we continue down, you'll be able to unlock one more jewel slot and eventually reach this set of passives here, which will further enhance your shock chance, lightning penetration, and even lightning damage to give you massive DPS boosts. And it will also increase the effectiveness of your shock and freeze buildup. The last passive you should unlock is to the left here. Authority increases AoE by 20%, which means Herald of Ice explosions will be able to attack more surrounding enemies, helping you proc Herald of Thunder easier. This passive alone made a huge difference on the build. Larger explosions will help you target rare enemies in radius, which means you can shoot lower HP enemies, trigger an explosion, and in most cases, it will be large enough to one-shot rare enemies that are nearby. My main bow on this build is an Armageddon Siege Expert Warden bow with 20% quality, 204 to 307 physical damage, 33 to 45 cold damage, and 2 iron runes. For modifiers, I have 21% chance to chain, 180% physical damage, 33 to 45 cold damage, 8% attack speed, 5 dex, and 11 mana per enemy killed. My quiver is the Carrion Arrow Penetrating Quiver with a 100% chance to pierce enemy targets, 23 to 26 cold damage, 53% increased damage with bow skills, 178 accuracy, 19% crit chance, 16% attack speed, and 5 dexterity. My helmet is the Damnation Dome Expert Face Mask with 20% quality, 274 evasion, 103 energy shield. I have 1 iron rune to increase evasion, and for modifiers, I have 67% evasion and shield, 72 accuracy, 87 mana, 33 dex, 43% cold resistance, and 21% chaos resistance. For body armor, I have the Rapture Mantle Expert Wayfarer Jacket with 20% quality, 584 evasion, 222 energy shield, and 2 iron runes. For modifiers, 8% chaos resistance, 68% increased evasion and shield, 47 spirit, 28 dex, 31% cold resistance, and 40% lightning resistance. For gloves, the Viper Paw Advanced Linen Wraps with 20% quality, 59 evasion, 23 shield, a fire rune for 12% fire resistance, For modifiers, 6 to 10 physical damage, 4 to 69 lightning damage, 83 mana, 42% fire resistance, 16% cold resistance, and 25% lightning resistance. The belt isn't anything special, I just tried my best to cap out my resistances. I have the Nemesis Pace Lizard Scale boots with 301 evasion, 12% fire resistance, 30% increased movement speed, 94% evasion, 122 mana, 12% cold resistance, and 26% lightning resistance. My first ring is the Rapture Circle Breach ring with 50% quality towards my cold modifiers. I have 4 to 5 physical damage, 15 to 25 cold damage, 33% increased cold damage, 10% lightning resistance, 11% chaos resistance, and 63% mana regen rate. My second ring is the Doom Knot Gold ring with 12% rarity increase, 8 to 15 physical damage, 8 to 11 cold damage, 30% increased lightning damage, 6 dex, 26% fire resistance, and 54% mana regen. And lastly, the Grim Scarab Jade Amulet with 13 dex, 48 spirit, 107 mana, 28% evasion, 36% lightning resistance, 67% mana regen rate, and 21% fire resistance. For my character stats, I have 214 dexterity, 122 intelligence, 32 strength, 1300 life, 350 shield, 1037 mana, 195 spirit, 75% evasion, and nearly maxed out resistances for fire, cold, lightning, and chaos, which is crucial for staying alive during endgame mapping. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and sticking around until the end. I'm having a tough time letting this ranger go. I want to play other classes, but I always come back to this one. I don't know, it's quick, lethal, and it can clear maps with very little effort, which provides a more laid-back leveling experience. If you enjoyed this video, a thumbs up would be greatly appreciated. It helps the channel grow, and it will recommend the video to more people. We gained almost 4,000 subscribers these last 30 days, which is unreal. I am very grateful for everyone who has been supporting the channel. If you want to see more Path of Exile 2 videos coming soon, make sure you subscribe and turn on those bell notifications. Thanks for watching, everyone.